the middle of an ice age, 40 degrees below freezing, and you're standing out here with no jacket. You'd be dead within hours. But your ancestors, they lived their whole lives out here. No fur, no claws, the same bare skin you have right now. So how did they survive? This is how cavemen beat the cold without a single jacket. Let's start by killing the most common myth of all. When most people picture a caveman, they picture this hairy, ape-like brute, covered head to toe in a thick coat of fur. But here's the twist that surprises almost everyone. By the time humans were walking into these frozen lands, we had already lost nearly all of our body hair, hundreds of thousands of years earlier. Our ancestors evolved in the heat of Africa, and down there, being sweaty and mostly hairless was actually a superpower. Bare skin covered in millions of sweat glands let us dump heat fast. We could jog after an antelope under the blazing midday sun until the animal literally overheated and collapsed. We are the sweatiest, best long-distance runners in the animal kingdom. Fantastic for the African savanna, absolutely catastrophic for an ice age. When we finally spread north into Europe and Asia, we walked into the killing cold basically naked, biologically speaking. So let's be clear about the situation. Nature did not hand us a warm coat. It didn't hand us antifreeze blood, or a layer of blubber or anything else. If humans were going to survive the freeze, it would not be with our bodies. It would be with our brains. And clever is the one thing we had in truly enormous supply. So let's break down the 5 weapons early humans used to wage all-out war on winter. Because every single one of them you are still using today. Weapon number 1. The obvious one, but with a twist you won't expect. Fire. Fire is the headline act of human survival, and for good reason. It's warmth, it's light, it's a cooked meal, and it's protection from predators, all at once. And we've been at this an astonishingly long time. Our ancestors were using fire hundreds of thousands of years before modern humans even existed. By the Ice Age, fire wasn't a new gadget. It was ancient, trusted technology. But how do you actually start one, out in the freezing wild with no matches and no lighter? 2 main ways. The first is friction. You spin a wooden spindle against a wooden board, fast and hard, until the heat of it grinds out a tiny glowing ember. It is exhausting, sweaty work, and in damp weather it can be nearly impossible. The second way is a spark. Strike the right stones together, like flint and a chunk of iron pyrite, and you can throw a shower of sparks into a nest of dry tinder and gently coax it into flame. And fire did something sneaky and profound. Cooked their food. Cooking breaks food down before you even eat it, unlocking far more energy from every bite. In a world where calories meant heat, that was a game changer. But here's the twist most people miss about fire. Making it was never really the hard part. The hard part was keeping it. A fire is a hungry, needy, fragile thing. Leave it alone for an hour in a snowstorm and it dies. And out here, a dead fire could very quickly mean a dead family. So early humans became fire keepers. They took turns all through the night, feeding the flames, shielding them from wind and snow, never once letting that precious glow go out. Some groups didn't even bother relighting fire from scratch. They carried living embers with them, nestled in moss or bark, or a hollowed-out horn, quite literally walking a spark across entire frozen landscapes. A tended fire turned a freezing cave into a home. But fire has one huge limitation. It only warms you while you're sitting right next to it. The moment you step away to hunt, the cold is right there waiting. Which brings us to weapon number 2. Weapon number 2. And honestly, this one is the most underrated invention in human history. Clothing. Now you might think, sure, they threw an animal skin over their shoulders and called it a day. And very early on, that's roughly what happened. A raw hide, draped over the back like a heavy cape. But a loose skin flapping in the wind is not a coat. Cold air sneaks in from the sides, the bottom, everywhere. It's better than nothing. But out here, better than nothing still gets you killed. The real revolution wasn't the skin at all. It was a tiny, almost invisible invention that quietly changed the fate of our whole species. The sewing needle, a slender sliver of bone or ivory, with a tiny hole painstakingly punched through one end. We've dug up needles more than 40,000 years old, polished smooth from years of use. With a needle and thread made from twisted animal sinew, humans could suddenly do something no other creature on Earth could do. They could tailor. Now clothing could be shaped to the body. Sleeves that hugged the arms, trouser legs, fitted hoods, even mittens and soft leather boots. Seams pulled tight, so the wind had nowhere left to sneak in. And they layered it just like you do. A soft inner layer worn against the skin, fur turned inward for warmth, and a tougher outer layer to break the wind and shed the snow. They even worked the hides to make them last, scraping them clean, softening them, and smoking them over a fire so they'd stay supple instead of rotting or freezing stiff. This was real craftsmanship, passed down and perfected over generations. Think about what a fitted fursuit really is. It's a portable pocket of warm air, trapped right against your body, that you carry around with you everywhere. A wearable microclimate. This is the invention that truly set humans free. With tailored, layered clothing, you no longer had to stay chained to the fire. You could walk out into the heart of the storm and take your warmth with you. And here's a wild detail. We can actually estimate when humans started wearing fitted clothing from the DNA of body lice. Because body lice evolved to live in clothing. Their family tree tells us clothes became a permanent part of us at least 100,000 years ago. Weapon number 3. A roof over your head. Shelter. Caves get all the credit, and they earned it. A deep cave holds a steady temperature all year round, shrugging off the worst of the weather howling outside. It's a natural fortress against the cold. But there was a catch. Good caves were rare, and they were often already taken. Sometimes by bears, sometimes by cave lions, sometimes by other people who really didn't want roommates. And you can't exactly carry a cave with you. So out on the treeless, frozen plains, where there were no caves and barely any trees, humans did something absolutely astonishing. They built houses out of mammoth bones. Enormous curved tusks and massive leg bones formed the frame. Over it they stretched heavy animal hides and packed the whole base with earth and snow. At one famous site in Ukraine, a single hut used the bones of dozens of mammoths. And yes, I did say snow. It sounds completely insane, but snow is full of trapped air, and trapped air is exactly what makes a good insulator. Pack it around your walls, and it holds heat in like a thick white blanket. It's the same reason animals burrow into it to survive. Inside one of these shelters, with a small fire going and warm bodies packed close together, the temperature could climb dozens of degrees above the killing cold just outside the wall. For groups that followed the herds, home had to move too, so they built light frames and covered them in stitched hides, creating tents they could pack up, carry, and pitch again wherever the hunting was good. Warmth you could fold up and take with you. Fire, clothing, shelter. 3 layers of defense against a world of ice. But there were 2 more weapons in the human arsenal. And these 2 were hiding inside the humans themselves. Weapon number 4. The body itself and what they chose to feed it. Your body is a furnace. Right now, it is quietly burning fuel to make heat, all day, every day, whether you notice it or not. And in brutal cold, that furnace has to burn a whole lot harder just to keep you alive. Some researchers estimate an active ice age human needed up to 5,000 calories a day in the depths of winter. That is more than double what a lot of us eat now. Staying warm is shockingly expensive. So they hunted the richest fuel they could possibly find. Fatty meat, because fat carries more than twice the energy of anything else, gram for gram. It was the premium, high-octane fuel of the entire ice age. They ate the fat, the rich marrow buried deep inside the bones, the organs, all of it. Absolutely nothing was wasted, because every single calorie was a few more precious minutes of body heat. And the body has automatic tricks of its own. Shivering is one. Those fast, involuntary muscle twitches aren't random. They're your muscles deliberately burning energy just to generate heat when you need it most. There's an even cooler one. Humans have a special tissue called brown fat, which burns energy purely to produce warmth, like a built-in space heater wired into your body. And people regularly exposed to cold actually grow more of it. Over many generations, populations living in the cold trended toward stockier, more compact bodies with shorter limbs. A snowman holds heat far better than a beanpole. It's basic physics, slowly written into the shape of the human body. But even a well-fed, cold-adapted body has a hard limit. Alone, out here, the single strongest human who ever lived would still eventually lose to the winter. Which brings us to the final weapon, and it's the most powerful one of all. But before we get to that final weapon, we have to talk about someone else. Because modern humans were not the only people trying to survive these winters. Meet the Neanderthals, another kind of human, tough, smart, and already living across the frozen north long before we ever arrived. And unlike us, they had been evolving in the cold for hundreds of thousands of years. And it showed. Neanderthals were built like Ice Age tanks. Short, powerful, barrel-chested bodies that held heat brilliantly. Broad noses to warm the frozen air before it hit their lungs. Their bodies were genuinely engineered for the cold in a way ours simply were not. They were incredible hunters, strong enough to take down huge animals up close, with heavy spears and raw nerve. On paper, in a fight against winter, the Neanderthals had the better body by far. So here's the haunting question. If they were tougher than us and better adapted to the cold than us, then why are they gone, and why are you here watching this? The full answer is still debated, but a big part of it seems to come down to the very weapons we've been talking about. The evidence suggests our ancestors pushed those tools further. More finely tailored clothing, stitched with those delicate needles. Wider trade networks that carried tools and ideas across huge distances. Larger, more connected social groups sharing knowledge and supplies. In other words, the Neanderthals may have had the better body, but our ancestors had the better toolkit and the better network. And in the long, grinding war against the Ice Age, the clever, connected group outlasted the stronger, lonelier one. Though here's a beautiful twist. They're not entirely gone. Our ancestors and the Neanderthals met, and sometimes had families together. And most people alive today still carry a little Neanderthal DNA right now. A faint echo of those cold, hardy people, living on inside us. And the lesson from all of this points straight at that final weapon. Because it wasn't muscle that won. It was working together. Weapon number 5. And this more than fire, more than fur is the real secret. Each other. A single human against the Ice Age is a sad and very short story. One person simply cannot hunt a mammoth, guard a fire all night, mend their clothes and find fresh shelter, all at the same time. It's impossible. But a group is a survival machine. The hunters bring back the fat and the hides. The fire keepers hold the light through the night. The crafters sew the clothing. The elders remember what to do. This is division of labor, one of the oldest human superpowers. When everyone specializes and everyone shares, the whole group can do things that no lone genius ever could. And when the cold bites its very hardest, they do the simplest, oldest thing in the world. They huddle together and share body heat, turning a dozen small furnaces into one big, warm one. They share food so that one bad day of hunting doesn't have to be a death sentence. Your survival becomes my survival. We rise together or we fall together. And maybe most important of all, they share knowledge. Where the herds go when the snows come, how to read the sky before a storm, the exact trick to a warm, waterproof seam, and a fire that lasts till morning. Around that fire at night they talked, they told stories, and those stories were not just entertainment. They were how a lifetime of hard-won survival knowledge got packed up and handed to the next generation. That knowledge was passed from parent to child, around the fire, for thousands and thousands of generations. Each one a little wiser, a little warmer, a little harder for winter to kill. This is the thing no other animal had. Not fur, not fangs, not claws, but deep cooperation and the power to pool everything we knew into one shared mind. That, in the end, was our real coat against the cold. Now, at this point, a fair question. How could we possibly know any of this? Nobody was filming the Ice Age. So where does this whole story actually come from? The answer is that archaeologists are basically detectives, and the frozen ground is one enormous crime scene, packed with clues. Those bone needles? We've dug them up by the hundreds, still lying where they were dropped tens of thousands of years ago. You can see the tiny drilled eye, and the shine worn into them by working hands. The fires leave dark, ashy stains in the soil, ringed with cracked, heat-scorched stones. Dig carefully, and you can find the exact spot where a family gathered night after night to stay warm. The mammoth bone huts are real, excavated places you can visit in museums today, with the great bones still arranged in careful, deliberate circles, exactly where they were stacked by human hands. Even their diet leaves fingerprints. The chemistry locked inside ancient human bones records what a person ate for years, and for many Ice Age humans, it screams one thing loud and clear. meat, and lots of it. And then there's DNA. From a sliver of bone, or those clothing-loving lice, we can read the deep history of our bodies, our migrations, and even that faint Neanderthal echo still inside us. So this isn't a fairy tale. It's a story reconstructed, patiently, from needles and ashes and bones and genes, by people determined to understand how we made it through. So there it is. 5 weapons against a frozen world. Fire tamed and carried. Clothing tailored and layered. Shelter, built from bone and snow. A body, well-fueled and adapted. And a group, bound together by trust and knowledge. Now notice what's completely missing from that list. Nobody survived the Ice Age by being the strongest or the toughest or the hairiest. In fact, the toughest, most cold-adapted humans of all, the Neanderthals, are the ones who vanished. Humans never outmuscled the winter. We outthought it. We looked at a frozen world that was actively trying to kill us, and we simply invented our way straight through it. And that ingenuity never left us. Every jacket hanging in your closet, every heated room, every warm meal on a bitter cold night is just the latest version of a problem your ancestors first solved with a bone needle and a carefully guarded flame. You are, quite literally, the descendant of the winners. Every single one of your ancestors, without a single exception, survived every winter of their life long enough to pass life on to you. So the next time you zip up your coat and step out into the cold, take just a second and give a quiet little nod to those clever, shivering, brilliant people who figured it all out first, with nothing but their wits and each other. They didn't just survive the winter. They passed the trick all the way down the line across 10,000 generations until it reached you. Thanks for watching. Stay warm out there. And hey, if you learned something new tonight, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. A brand new bedtime fact is waiting for you every single night. There's another one on screen right now. Sweet dreams.